Welcome to this episode of Antinatalism Around the World. Before we get into the actual video, I'm doing this little introduction on my own at the start because this one is slightly different from the previous episodes in that this one, obviously, as you'll know from the thumbnail and the title, is about antinatalism in Somalia. For a variety of reasons, which you will find out about in the actual interview that you're about to hear. We had some technical difficulties because the person, NAMUS'S, that we spoke to had to go into the mountains to do this interview, and that brought with it some technical difficulties. So the layout of this episode is slightly different from the other one, so please bear with that. We also had to use a translator who Laith Malek Reem, who some of you will know, very kindly offered to translate between myself and NAMUS'S. And so what I've done is I have edited this video so that you are mostly hearing Laith speaking on behalf of NAMUS'S. But what I've also done is linked in the description to an unlisted video where you can see the whole thing. So you can listen to NAMUS'S himself and speak in Arabic and then Laith translating it into English. Or you can stay on this one and just hear Laith and I talking in English. The only other thing I want to say is that if you are Somali or you know anyone else who is Somali who is antinatalist, please encourage them to watch this video and reach out to NAMUS'S and start a community, because as you'll hear in this interview, the situation in Somalia for antinatalists, but basically anyone that goes against the grain there by the sounds of it, really has a tough time. So I think it's more important there than anywhere else to have some form of community where you can speak to other people who are essentially in the same sort of boat as you, and you can have some form of community there. So if anyone is unsure on how to get into contact with NAMUS'S, please just drop me an email. You'll find that in the description. But I don't think there's anything else to go through before the episode, so the next thing you'll hear is the episode. Welcome back to another episode of Antinatalism Around the World. So today we've had a bit of a different technical approach to this, so hopefully it's looking and sounding fine for the people listening and watching. But today is about antinatalism in Somalia, which I think is going to be really interesting. And I'm here with NAMUS'S, who is in and from Somalia, who, you know, we're going to be finding out about what it is like to be antinatalist there and what antinatalism is like there. And I'm also joined by Laith, who is going to be helping translate from me to NAMUS'S. So before we get into the proper discussion and interview, Laith, obviously you're going to mostly be, you know, doing the translating. So I just wanted to quickly allow you to introduce yourself first.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Lawrence, for the introduction. So this is Laith Malek Reem. I reside in Bolivia. I'm an antinatalist as well, and I'll be doing the translation between Lawrence and NAMUS'S from Arabic to English and from English to Arabic.
Yeah, no, thank you, Laith. So let's go straight into like the questions with NAMUS'S. So, Laith, you able to ask NAMUS'S? So, not to give too much away, but NAMUS'S had to leave the area that he lives in to do this interview so that he could essentially do it in secret. Are you able to ask him why he had to do that and what are the dangers that face him?
Yes. Lawrence, so what he said is that he says that antinatalism in general in Somalia is very, very dangerous because they claim that you are an atheist. It's a war against God himself.
Yeah.
And when you talk about this subject, they would probably kill you or call for arresting you. And even the educated ones might do that. Not only the ignorant ones, but the educated ones, they might be a reason behind killing you.
Oh, wow. And is that the case? I assume it is. Is that the case for any sort of non-religious idea, is it generally not accepted to discuss controversial ideas in Somalia in general?
Lawrence, he says that in Somalia they have some traditions, and if anybody wants to talk about any subject that is not included in their traditions, that would be unacceptable. So even any controversial subject would be unacceptable there.
Oh, whoa. Okay. And is it like that in the whole of Somalia, or is this just in the specific area that he lives?
Lawrence, he says that the problem is in the whole country, not only in specific areas.
Right. Okay. And so, if the culture is so closed to non-religious ideas or non-traditional ideas, how did NAMUS come into contact with antinatalism? How did he become an antinatalist himself?
So Lawrence, what he basically said that it's impossible for any person in Somalia to be liberated, to be open to new ideas and controversial subjects without learning another language that it's not the Somalian language, because in Somalia they have another language that is not Arabic. It's different. It's a different language. But they do not, since they do not accept anything new and non-traditional, so in the same language that they have, it's very limited, very closed. So that's why he had to learn Arabic and he had to learn English.
إن أضفت إليك شيئا يعني الأفكار المثيرة للجدل لم تترجم إلى اللغة الصومالية، ولهذا يصعب يعني على شخص صومالي أن يتحول إلى شخص متحرر.
نعم دعني أترجم له. شكرا عزيزي. He says again, he repeats and he insists that controversial subjects do not exist in the Somalian language itself. So that's why for Somalis it's a little bit difficult to reach that goal, for example. So he had to learn Arabic, he had to learn English a little bit in order to get in touch with new subjects, different subjects, and in order to become vegan, for example, to know about antinatalism and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. It's a bit like, I don't know if you've read it, Laith. You know 1984 by George Orwell? And in that book, he talks about how the regime there tries to limit the ideas that people can think about by not including the words for the ideas in the language. So they don't actually have the language to be able to discuss the controversial ideas that the regime don't want them to talk about. So it sounds like quite similar to that in how the culture is there. I just had another quick question. So I know this isn't the topic of the interview, but are you able to ask NAMUS where he learned English and Arabic if the culture does not really encourage him to do that? And also, I think you mentioned he's vegan as well. What's it like being vegan in Somalia?
نعم سأترجم لك. Lawrence, so you asked me two parts of a question.
Yeah.
The first was how did he learn Arabic and English, and the second was about veganism.
Yeah.
So let me start with Arabic and English. Regarding the English language, he learned by himself, by looking and searching and helping himself to learn the language on the internet. And regarding the Arabic language, he had to go to a mosque in order to, because the holy book of the Islam itself is in Arabic.
Right.
So he had to go to the mosque to learn the Arabic language itself, and from school. What made me so surprised is that his father refused to put him in a school because he believes that being educated is something unacceptable, and it's a way of staying away from God himself. So he didn't want him to be in school, and
Oh,
he
wow.
had to go to school in a secret way.
Yeah, oh, that's crazy. I have a quick question about that, but
أعود إلى السؤال الثاني.
He wants to say something.
oh, sure, go for it. Yeah.
Lawrence, so I didn't really translate the other part of the answer, which is about veganism.
Yeah.
And he repeated it now. He said that veganism in Somalia is very dangerous because when you show love and compassion to the animals, people do not accept that. They refuse that because they say that in the holy book itself of Islam, God himself allowed you to kill animals and to eat them. So if you're doing that, if you're doing the opposite, that means that you're against God himself. So they make the connection and they see that you're an atheist, and they would also cause you so much harm only for being vegan.
Yeah.
يعني إن أضفت لك شيئا آخر، يقولون هدف وجود الأنعام هي ذبحها، يقولون كذلك يعني، ويستدلون عليك بآيات قرآنية.
He says that the reason that these animals exist is to kill them and to be served for humans in general.
Yeah.
So that's what they believe and that's what they say. And they consume so much animals there in Somalia.
Yeah. So it seems like the reason that antinatalism and veganism are both controversial is basically it comes back down to religion, is the fact that they both they as the people in Somalia maybe see it as they both show that you're an atheist basically and that you reject God. So I'm guessing like that's the core reason that people find them they don't allow this sort of discussion. Like before I ask any more questions, are you able just to tell NAMUS'S that it's like super impressive that in the situation he's in, he has not only learnt about antinatalism and veganism, but actually practices them?
So he says that, yes, he practiced antinatalism and veganism, and he received many death threats from society in general. Also, they sent him messages that he might go to jail. The Arabs, the Muslims from the Arabs, are like the Europeans for them because they are very, very open-minded.
Yeah.
In comparison to Somalians that are Muslims, but they're not from.
أفغانستان كل المسلمين غير العرب.
نعم دعني أترجم له. So he's repeating again that any Muslim that is Arabic is more open-minded than Muslims in Somalia.
One question I wanted to ask is, can you ask him that question that I said about before? Like, how did he actually find antinatalism? Did he have a discussion with someone online, or did he find a book or a video or something?
So Lawrence, what he basically said is that he had a feeling from inside, a personal feeling, that birth is a crime itself. So he opened Google and he wrote on Google search that birth is a crime without knowing anything about antinatalism, without knowing anything about the philosophy itself.
Yeah.
And then when he wrote that, many articles were shown up on Google on the search that about antinatalism, and he saw my videos, my personal videos in Arabic about antinatalism. So
Oh, nice.
he saved all my videos and he started watching them, and he started knowing more about antinatalism.
Oh, nice! That's amazing. Does he have to use a VPN for that, or do they does Somalia not limit the internet access?
Yes, he uses VPN for that.
Yeah. And was it a similar thing for veganism, that he just, he had this feeling that it was wrong to, harm other animals, and he then just Googled it?
So Lawrence, he's saying that it's the same with veganism. He had to do some research for several months in order to know about all of that, because it was a little bit difficult to also have some results while doing the search for several months. So Lawrence, he's basically saying that he was very religious at first when he was younger, and even when he used to look for these for this information in general, he was a very religious person. He was different from now. And when he was 10 years old, his father used to ask him to hold the sheep for him in order to behead the sheep, to kill the sheep.
Oh, wow.
And he refused to do so because he had a feeling from inside that that is wrong, and that he didn't accept that from inside, although he was religious. He says that all his family members have helped his father to behead sheep and were part in this, except him, and they used to describe him as a coward.
Yeah. That's crazy. I think they do that in a lot of countries where the slaughterhouses are more decentralized and people sort of do it themselves. Can I quickly ask how did he become? I'm assuming from how he's speaking now, he's an atheist now. How did he become an atheist? Did he just not really? He just didn't. He wasn't convinced by the religious upbringing.
Lawrence, he says that he's not an atheist, but he's an agnostic. He's close to atheism, but he's not an atheist. And the reason why he reached this conclusion is that he learned Arabic and he was able to learn more and more about different stuff. And he started thinking by himself that if Muslims are right and the religion is right, then why do they have miserable lives in general? Like, they always say that they are blessed from God and they have the best religion ever, but they have all the problems, and their countries are the worst countries in the world. So there was a contradiction to him regarding Muslims themselves. So he thought on his own, and then he said that there must be something wrong about that, and that's how he became an agnostic.
Yeah. And you mentioned before that he said that from being vegan and antinatalist, he'd received, death threats and people saying that he could go to jail and stuff. Has he spoken about antinatalism with people before, and it went very wrong? Or what? Why were people sending him these death threats? Did he used to be very public about it?
He was actually saying that some people knew him while he was talking about antinatalism, and then he didn't finish his sentence because of the internet.
Yeah. What while we're waiting for him, can I quickly ask you a question, Laith? He was saying that to people in Somalia, the Muslims from the Middle East are seen as like the Europeans, the sort of the open-minded people. How do you react to that? Because you obviously are from the Middle East, you know what people are like there. What is your reaction to him saying that?
That's what makes me surprised and shocked. That I personally think that people in the Middle East, especially the ones who think differently outside the box, not like the society in general, have a lot of problems and a lot of restrictions. So they cannot freely speak about whatever they want to speak about because of Islam itself, because of their religion and of traditions. So when he says that it's worse in Somalia, so that makes me feel terrified that it's much worse there in comparison with the Middle East.
Yeah.
It's worse. Yes, it's hell in Somalia if it's worse than the Middle East.
Yeah.
وأن نحن ليس الصوماليين وحدهم، بل كل المسلمين غير العرب أقل انفتاحا من المسلمين العرب. تسمعني؟
نعم أسمعك. دعني أترجم ذلك له. He says not only Somalians but any Muslim that is non-Arabic is worse than Arabic Muslims because is less open-minded and is they're more extremists.
Yeah. Can you ask him to finish what he was saying before, but when he cut out?
Lawrence, he says that he has received many death threats from people who know him personally and from the supposedly the closest people to him, from family and from friends, only because they knew that he was talking about antinatalism and veganism. No. He says that he had to lie to them and to say that he's not antinatalist anymore and he's not vegan anymore, just to avoid having these problems from them. And he was like, there's something in Arabic that it's like how can I explain this to you? An expression in Arabic that says that I had to change many masks for my face just to avoid these problems. So that's what he basically said. So he tried to escape from his city and his country in general, but he couldn't. So he had to lie to them and fake it and act that he's like them now.
So does he have hopes one day to be able to leave Somalia?
هل لديك آمال أن تترك الصومال يوما ما في المستقبل? Lawrence, he says that he has so much hope to leave Somalia, but it's very difficult for him, and he doesn't want to be cruel to animals in Somalia. But since he's acting now in front of everyone, so it's so hard for him, and it's a form of suffering. And in order not to suffer so much, he sometimes thinks of ending his life. He says that he has two options, there's no third option, to be cruel to animals every single day in Somalia, and he is forced to do that now because he's faking it and he's lying to his society, or to end his life, and he thinks about ending his life every single day. That's what he's saying.
What are the barriers for him to leave Somalia?
Lawrence, he says that in order to leave Somalia, you should at least have a person outside the country who can help you with that. And if not, then you should be having money, and he has no money. He's not financially stable, so he cannot afford it to leave the country.
Yeah, that's his situation is pretty tough. Does he know of any other vegans or antinatalists in Somalia at all? Maybe he hasn't met them in person, but is he aware that any others exist?
So he says that he's sure that there are many atheists in Somalia, but they're not open to that. They cannot say that. And regarding antinatalism, he doesn't think that there are antinatalists in Somalia because of the problem of the language itself. So he thinks that there are some antinatalist Somalians that are outside the country. And he saw a video once of an antinatalist who is Somalian, but he lives outside the country, and he tried to get in contact with him, but he couldn't.
Really? Can you ask him, is this the guy who he sent me the YouTube channel of? I think his YouTube channel is called Meaningless Suffering.
Yes, he is that person, Lawrence.
Okay. Well, what I'll do for anyone listening who's interested, I will obviously link that guy's YouTube channel in the description, but also what we can maybe do is try and link NAMUS'S up with that guy so that they can communicate, because obviously if that guy is Somali, they're going to have a lot more they're going to have some what do you call it? Things that they can relate on and discuss and maybe help each other with, if you get what I mean, because they understand more the same cultural background and stuff like that, whereas me and you were just hearing about it. So maybe we can are you able to tell NAMUS'S that we'll try and help link him up with that person?
Shukran. He says that's good. That's good.
Okay, yeah, good. Yeah, we can, after the recording, we can try and see what we can do. So going back to, NAMUS'S was saying how he, used to be more open about his antinatalist views, and he, had a very bad reaction. People were, sending him death threats, even people that he thought were close to him. Can you ask him, like, what were the kind of interactions he had with people about antinatalism? Did he have one-on-one conversations with them where he was explaining his thoughts? Or was it some other interaction? Like, did he go to, I don't know if they have, like, debate groups there. I'm guessing by the sounds of the culture, they probably don't. But yeah, can you ask him about that?
No. It was a one-on-one conversation, Lawrence. It was not a debate in public because they do not have that in Somalia. So he had to speak to his friends only one by one.
Yeah. See, usually in these interviews, I ask questions about, like, is there anything in the politics of the country that relates to antinatalism, or is there any antinatalism mentioned in the media? But I would just assume that it's just going to be a no in Somalia, just because they don't even have the language to be able to discuss antinatalism, like he said. So, yeah, it's
But let me confirm that.
Okay, sure, yeah.
So Lawrence, what he basically says that the Somali press do not speak about any subject that is non-traditional, even if we do not want to talk about antinatalism. Anything that is secular or is related to secularism, that is outside religion, they wouldn't even mention it. So that's why it would be impossible to have anything about antinatalism or veganism in the media itself, because they wouldn't even have interviews with anyone who thinks differently.
Yeah. And did he mention the BBC, or did I mishear?
Yes, he mentioned the BBC as well. Let me confirm what he said about the BBC. So Lawrence, he says that in Somalia they also have BBC in Somalia, which is originally from England, which is originally British.
Yeah.
But they don't even mention anything that is non-traditional in Somalia itself.
Oh, wow.
It's a channel that it's international, that should be covering some sensitive subjects or some controversial subjects, but they do not mention anything about that.
Yeah. He's so I obviously
I forgot to translate one more thing.
Yeah.
He said that BBC in Arabic is much more open than BBC in Somalia, because there's another channel of BBC in Arabic itself.
Yeah. If there's another antinatalist in Somalia that happens to see this video, what advice would he give them, and what is the best way that they can connect with him, maybe?
So Lawrence, what he basically said is that he would give an advice to any person from Somalia that is watching who is an antinatalist to keep preaching antinatalism in Somalia, because the situation is very difficult there. So they have to tell people about it, because Somalis in general are dying on a daily basis because of poverty, because of other problems, and they have been in a war for more than 30 years. So they kill each other, and there are tribes and groups that kill each other in Somalia on a daily basis. So that's why he thinks personally that this subject in particular should be spread in the whole country because of its importance. And regarding how that person would be able to connect with NAMUS'S, so he says that there's no problem to look for him on Facebook and connect with him on Messenger.
Okay, cool. Is there any form of Somali antinatalist group that he has set up that people can join, or can they just reach out individually?
So Lawrence, he said that antinatalism in Somalia is very rare, as you know, and it would be very, very difficult to make it public in Somalia. He says that he wishes to see antinatalism published in Somalia. He wishes to see it spread in the whole country.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from the sound of it, that sounds like a long way off, but I mean, yeah, hopefully in the future it's able to do that, but it sounds like it's going to be a big uphill battle.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, if there's nothing else that he wanted to add, are you able to thank him so much, and also just say again how impressive it is that he's been able to come to these realizations in the environment that he is in?
No. He says that he would love to see new people who would be able to spread antinatalism, especially in his country, and that's what he wishes for.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully when this video publishes, hopefully people, from or in Somalia will see it, and they'll be able to reach out to him, and they'll be able to form some sort of community, because it sounds at the moment like it's just him. And he knows about that one guy as well, but he hasn't been able to contact him. So, yeah, hopefully a community, even though I assume it's going to be a small community, but hopefully a community will be able to form very soon.
Yes, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Laith, for agreeing to do the translation. Obviously, this would not have been able to happen without you.
You're most welcome, Lawrence.
And thank you to NAMUS'S as well.